Discover Seneca's wisdom on living fully in an ever shorter life. Embracing mortality. Discovering timelessness. Imagine this. You wake up tomorrow and find a note on your bedside table. It says, "You have 1 year left to live. What would you do? How would you spend each hour, each minute?" The weight of this question feels unbearable, doesn't it? But here's the shocking truth. We're already living as if we have forever, wasting the only resource we cannot replace, time. Seneca, the Stoic philosopher, confronted this harsh reality head-on. He didn't sugarcoat life's brevity. Instead, he challenged us to face it with courage, clarity, and urgency, as he wrote in his profound essay on the shortness of life. It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it. How often do you scroll mindlessly through your phone? How many hours slip away as you fret about the future or dwell on past mistakes? Now think about this. How much of your life are you truly living? Seneca would argue that most of us are not living at all. Instead, we're existing, drifting through days consumed by distractions, obligations, and regrets. Seneca's wisdom begins with a startling premise. Life is long if you know how to use it. He believed that living fully doesn't require more time, but more intentionality. Ask yourself this: what if you treated each moment as a sacred opportunity, instead of anxiously planning for a future you may never see? What if you embraced the present with gratitude and purpose? In one of his most famous passages, Seneca paints a vivid picture of humanity's folly. People are frugal in guarding their personal property, but as soon as it comes to squandering time, they are most wasteful of the one thing in which it is right to be stingy. Isn't this true? We'd never lend our money to a stranger without a second thought, but we let anyone and anything steal our time. Let's pause here for a moment. Picture your life as an hourglass. The sand at the top represents the time you have left. The sand at the bottom is the time you've already spent. And that tiny stream in the middle, that's the present moment, slipping away with every breath you take. Now here's the deep question. What are you doing with your stream of moments? Seneca's advice for reclaiming our lives is both radical and practical. He urges us to reflect daily on how we spend our time. He asks us to prioritize wisdom, meaningful relationships, and personal growth over fleeting pleasures and trivial pursuits. Does this sound impossible in today's world of endless notifications and societal pressure? Perhaps, but Seneca would remind us, the more noise there is outside, the quieter you must become inside. The first step is clarity. What truly matters to you? What are your core values? If you don't know, how can you align your life with them? Take a moment to answer this. If you could only do one thing for the rest of your life, what would it be? Your answer is a glimpse into your soul. Seneca invites us to stop measuring life by years or decades and to start measuring it by depth and quality. He points out that even a short life can be rich and fulfilling if lived wisely, while a long life spent in distractions is no life at all. Here's a practical challenge. Tomorrow morning, write down the 3 things that would make your day meaningful. At night, review them. Did you live intentionally? Or did life pull you along its currents? And here's where it gets even deeper. Seneca doesn't just ask us to make better use of our time. He asks us to come to terms with its end. To live fully, he says, we must embrace our mortality. This might sound grim, but think about it. If you were immortal, would anything matter? Would you cherish love, beauty, or friendship if you thought they would last forever? Seneca's Stoic wisdom teaches us that the fleeting nature of life gives it meaning. The fact that we will die is not a reason to despair. It's a reason to live. So, I'll leave you with this question to ponder until the next part. If you knew you couldn't fail and that time was not guaranteed, what bold step would you take today? Mastering the art of intentional living in a chaotic world. Imagine waking up in a bustling city at dawn. The world around you already in motion, cars honking, people rushing, notifications piling up. Amid this chaos, how do you find stillness? How do you focus on what truly matters? Seneca's wisdom speaks louder than ever in a world like ours. where distractions seem infinite and time slips through our fingers. Seneca understood that chaos isn't a modern invention. Even in ancient Rome, people were pulled in countless directions by responsibilities, ambitions, and temptations. But he believed that no matter how chaotic the world becomes, we can create order within ourselves. The key, he argued, is intentional living. Let's start with this. What does intentional living mean to you? For Seneca, it meant living with purpose and alignment, ensuring that every action reflects your values. He wrote, "No man can live a happy life if he is tossed to and fro by chance, and always struggling to follow the beck and call of events. How often do we allow life to dictate our choices instead of making deliberate decisions?" Seneca invites us to reclaim control by focusing on what he called the dichotomy of control. This principle divides the world into two categories: things we can control and things we cannot. He urged us to pour our energy only into what lies within our power, our thoughts, actions, and reactions, while accepting the rest as it is. Here's a challenge. What would happen if you let go of worrying about things you can't control? To live intentionally, Seneca believed we must first conquer our desires. He argued that much of what we chase, wealth, status, possessions, offers fleeting satisfaction but leaves us emptier in the long run. Think about it. How many times have you pursued something, convinced it would bring happiness, only to feel unfulfilled once you achieved it? Seneca wasn't against enjoying life. He was against being enslaved by it. He taught that true freedom comes from mastering our desires, not indulging them. Ask yourself, what do you really need to be content? Strip away societal expectations, and you may find that happiness lies in simplicity. In today's world, intentional living also means setting boundaries. Seneca warned against being consumed by the demands of others, saying, "You act like mortals in all that you fear, and like immortals in all that you desire. How often do you overcommit, leaving no time for what matters most?" Now, imagine saying no to one unnecessary obligation tomorrow. What would that free up for you? Seneca also believed in the transformative power of reflection. He ended each day by reviewing his actions and thoughts, asking, "Did I live today as I intended?" This practice can help us identify patterns, realign with our values, and cultivate gratitude. Tonight, before you sleep, take 5 minutes to reflect. What did I do well? What can I improve? Let's explore another layer of intentional living. Dealing with setbacks. Life, as Seneca knew, is unpredictable. Plans fail, loved ones leave, and tragedies strike. But he taught that these events don't define us. Our responses do. He wrote, "A wise man is content with his lot, whatever it may be, without wishing for what he has not." When faced with adversity, how do you respond? Do you resist, or do you adapt? One powerful way to practice this resilience is to visualize the worst-case scenario. This isn't about pessimism. It's about preparation. Seneca called this premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. By imagining potential challenges, you can face them calmly when they arise. Try this exercise. Think of a current worry. What's the worst that could happen? And if it does, how would you cope? Seneca's philosophy also emphasizes the importance of community. He believed that we cannot live fully in isolation, nor can we achieve greatness alone. He wrote, "No one can live happily who has regard for himself alone and transforms everything into a question of his own utility." Consider this. Who in your life inspires you to grow? And equally important, who drains your energy and distracts you from your purpose? To live intentionally, we must surround ourselves with people who challenge and uplift us. But more than that, Seneca taught that we must be that person for others. He believed that wisdom is not something to hoard but to share. When was the last time you inspired someone? What would change if you made it a daily practice? Let's pause to consider this. If your life were a canvas, what picture would you paint with your time? Are you painting with bold, deliberate strokes, or are you letting others wield the brush? Seneca's message is clear. living fully requires discipline, clarity, and courage. It means taking ownership of our time, desires, and actions. But it also means letting go of control, of fear, of everything that keeps us from the present moment. So, here's a deep question for you to reflect on until the next part. If you could change one habit today to live more intentionally, what would it be? Unlocking freedom through the Stoic mindset. Imagine a bird in a cage. It flutters its wings, longing for freedom, yet it's confined by metal bars. Now imagine the cage isn't physical but mental, a prison of our own making, built from fears, regrets, and unfulfilled desires. Seneca's wisdom shows us how to unlock that cage, granting us the ultimate freedom, mastery over ourselves. Seneca believed that true freedom comes from within. It's not about escaping external circumstances but transforming how we perceive and respond to them. He wrote, "No man is free who is a slave to his body, his possessions, or his passions." Let that sink in. How often do we surrender our freedom to fleeting emotions or material pursuits? Here's the question. What controls you more than it should? Freedom begins with understanding what we can control. Seneca taught that while we cannot dictate events, we can choose our responses. This perspective is empowering. Think about it: the rude remark, the unexpected failure, the plans that fall apart. All these things lose their power when we refuse to let them dictate our peace of mind. Try this: the next time something goes wrong, pause, ask yourself, what part of this can I control? Focus there. To unlock freedom, Seneca invites us to redefine success. In a world that glorifies wealth, fame, and power, it's easy to lose sight of what truly matters. But Seneca argued that external achievements are fleeting, while inner virtues, wisdom, courage, and integrity are eternal. He wrote, "True happiness is to enjoy the present, without anxious dependence upon the future." So, what does success mean to you? And is it aligned with your values? One of the greatest barriers to freedom is fear of failure, rejection, or the unknown. Seneca believed that fear is often more damaging than the things we fear themselves. He famously said, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Reflect on this. What are you afraid of right now? Is the fear rooted in reality? Or is it a story you're telling yourself? A powerful tool for overcoming fear is what Seneca called amor fati, the love of fate. This doesn't mean passively accepting everything that happens but embracing life's challenges as opportunities for growth. Imagine seeing every setback as a lesson, every obstacle as a chance to build strength. How would your life change if you loved your fate, no matter what it brought? Freedom also requires us to confront mortality. For many, the thought of death is paralyzing, but Seneca saw it as a motivator. He urged us to live each day as if it were our last, not in a reckless, hedonistic way, but with urgency and gratitude. He wrote, "Begin at once to live, and count each separate day as a separate life." So, here's a deep question. If today were your last, how would you spend it? Seneca's mindset teaches us to focus on the quality of our experiences rather than their quantity. It's not about cramming our lives with activities but savoring each moment fully. Think of a meal you eat slowly, appreciating every flavor, versus one you rush through without tasting. How often do you live like the latter? What would happen if you started living like the former? To unlock freedom, we must also free ourselves from others' opinions. Seneca reminded us that we waste precious time worrying about how we're perceived. He said, "You will cease to fear if you cease to hope." This paradoxical statement challenges us to let go of both approval and disapproval, finding peace in our own judgment. Ask yourself, are you living for yourself or for others? Finally, Seneca emphasized the importance of gratitude. Freedom, he believed, is found not in acquiring more but in appreciating what we already have. He wrote, "It is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more. That is poor." When was the last time you truly felt grateful? Try this tonight. List 3 things you're thankful for. Notice how it shifts your perspective. As we conclude, Let's return to the image of the bird in the cage. Seneca's wisdom is the key, but you must choose to use it. The cage will not unlock itself. The question is, will you set yourself free? Seneca's philosophy is not just ancient wisdom. It's a timeless guide for navigating our modern world. His teachings remind us that freedom is not a destination but a mindset, a way of being that transcends circumstances. So, I'll leave you with this final challenge. What small step can you take today to reclaim your freedom? The answer may just change your life.